Anderson the Spider Silva versus Michael the Count Bisping is the main event. UFC Fight Night 84, hashtag UFC London, takes place February 27th, 2016, live and on the #1 streaming service in the world, in my opinion, UFC Fight Pass. What I'm going to do here, folks, is I'm going to talk about each fighter individually and their history as a fighter. Then I'm going to talk about the tale of the tape. Then I'll get to my prediction / pick toward the end of the video. I'll put a link in the description box below so that if you don't want to hear all that other stuff and you just want to get right to the pick, you can go right there. So let's start off with Anderson the Spider Silva. In my opinion, he is the best mixed martial artist of all time. Of course, that is debatable. Some people are going to say that Johnny Bones Jones is the best of all time, but the numbers speak for themselves. Anderson Silva has a UFC record 16 fight win streak. He has the most UFC title defenses in a row at 10. He has the most knockdowns landed in all-time UFC history with 17. He is the second all-time with UFC post-fight bonuses, and he's third all-time for significant strike landed percentage. Of course, Johnny Bones could sometime pass him, but as of right now, those numbers speak for themselves. Michael the Count Bisping has a pretty illustrious career of his own. These guys made their UFC debuts only 8 days apart. Michael Bisping was the first guy between these two to make his UFC debut. He went 17-7 in his UFC career. His first loss was a split decision to Rashad Evans at 205 pounds. After that fight, a loss, he dropped to 185 pounds, where he has went 12-6. 2 times Michael the Count Bisping was in a title eliminator fight where if he won, he would have fought Anderson the Spider Silva for the UFC championship. But he lost to first Dan Henderson at UFC 100. That is one hell of a famous H-bomb. Then he lost to the American gangster Chael Sonnen. Of course, those are those guys' illustrious careers, but in mixed martial arts, it is all about what have you done for me lately. So first I'm going to go over what Anderson Silva has done for us lately, or kind of lately. Then I'll talk about Michael Bisping. So Anderson Silva, he won that 16th fight in a row against a 205-pound fighter, Stephan Bonnar. In fact, I forgot to mention that Anderson Silva went 3-0 in UFC's light heavyweight division. That is quite an accolade right there. So he beat Stephan Bonnar in a fight that was kind of strange. Anderson had way too much confidence in his chin. He sat against the fence and kind of let Stephan Bonnar tee off on him for a little bit. He thought his head movement was better than it was. He caught a few strikes to the dome piece from Stephan Bonnar, who we later found out was juiced up. He was on some PEDs. Now, you can say that maybe Anderson's been on PEDs his entire career as well, because he tested positive against Nick Diaz, but hey, we don't know anything about that. That is pure speculation. Then after that, he fought Chris Weidman the first time in a fight where he didn't have many shining moments other than his leg kicks. Of course, Chris Weidman knocked him out when Anderson was being a goofball in the second round at 1 minute and 18 seconds in that second fight. Chris Weidman decided, hey, I'm going to check those fucking leg kicks that Anderson hit me with in that first fight, and he did just that. Anderson broke his leg when trying to leg kick Chris Weidman in the second round 2 minutes sooner than in their first fight at 1 minute 16. What I want to talk about here is that in the first round against Chris Weidman in the second fight, Chris Weidman dropped him with a short hook from the clinch. Now we're going back to where I talked about Anderson had too much confidence in his chin and his head movement. That cost him in both Chris Weidman fights. And earlier on in his career, he let people tee off on his head. I think that his chin has depleted quite a bit, and I think that he realized that as well, because when he fought Nick Diaz, he was really, really careful. Everyone thought that fight was going to be a barn burner because those were 2 strikers, but Anderson played it safe, did just counter punching, which he is known for, and he got the victory by basically landing more strikes than Nick Diaz. I think it was 108-77. So Anderson landed 31 more strikes. So Michael Bisping, what has he done for us lately? He lost to Tim, the All-American Kennedy. Basically, Tim Kennedy wrestled him. Then he beat Kung Lee overwhelmed him with punches. Michael the Count Bisping has the most significant strikes landed in all-time UFC history. He's also second in most strikes period landed in UFC history, right behind Frankie Edgar. Actually, not right behind. Frankie Edgar's like 500 more strikes landed above him, but still, that is pretty awesome. And then Michael the Count Bisping lost to Luke Rockhold. Basically, in that fight, Luke Rockhold big brothered him a little bit. Luke Rockhold was the larger fighter. He had quite a reach advantage. And it was a guillotine choke submission that finished Michael the Count Bisping. But what really finished the fight was a big head kick that put Michael down. And then Luke Rockhold cinched up a one-armed guillotine. Since that time, though, Michael Bisping has went on to win decisions against CB, the Doberman Dalloway, and Thales Latis, who I'll be talking about in the next video as he takes on Gegard the Dreamcatcher Mousasi. In the fight against CB Dalloway, Michael Bisping used some good takedown defense, some good head movement, some good footwork. He likes to circle a lot, and he got the unanimous decision victory over CB the Doberman Dalloway. And then against Thales Latis, he did almost the same thing early on. In the first round, Michael just circled. One thing that Michael is known for is his cardio. He's known for his cardio and his volume punching. In the third round of that fight, though, this is where I want to key in on, against Thales Latis, Thales rocked him 2 different occasions and then just went in on the clinch with Michael the Count Bisping. Right now, Anderson Silva is minus 300 with the comeback on Michael the Count Bisping at plus 265. Overall, their records are 33-6 for Anderson the Spider Silva with 1 no contest, 28-7 for Michael the Count Bisping. Anderson Silva is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, but he is 4 years older than Michael the Count Bisping, and Anderson Silva is 40 years old, and according to Fightnomics by Reed Kuhn, it's a book, a real paper book, a man who is 40 years old only wins 25% of the time. Some more tail of the tape here. Michael the Count Bisping lands about 1.2 more strikes per minute than Anderson the Spider Silva. Anderson absorbs about 1 less strike per minute. Anderson's way down there on the low end of strikes absorbed per minute with that head movement, of course. Takedown accuracy, believe it or not, Anderson Silva has 77% takedown accuracy. I don't think that that's going to happen here, but that's a little fun fact. So now, let's get into my pick and prediction for this UFC middleweight main event. Perhaps you could tell by the way I spoke about Anderson the Spider Silva, but he is my favorite fighter of all time. PED accusations, PED positive test aside, he is my #1 favorite fighter of all time, and it has been that way since he knocked out my previous favorite fighter in Forrest Griffin with a fall-away jab. I thought, you know what? If this guy can do that to my favorite fighter, he has to be my new favorite fighter. But I'm going to give you an unbiased prediction for this fight, despite my love for Anderson the Spider Silva. So, Anderson is a counterpuncher. Michael the Count Bisping is a volume striker. At times, I mentioned how Michael Bisping likes to circle a lot. Anderson Silva will just stand there and wait for him to throw a strike, and then he will counter him. Also, Anderson the Spider Silva has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Michael Bisping, I think, has a brown belt, but we haven't seen too much of that. Now, Anderson Silva is 40 years old, but Michael the Count Bisping is no spring chicken either. What I think is going to happen in this fight is that Michael Bisping is going to circle a lot like he usually does. Anderson's going to take the center of the octagon, wait for him to strike first, and he's going to counter-attack him. As long as Anderson can get his head off that center line, he's going to be able to counter and hurt Michael Bisping early and often in this fight. Now, one thing that's going to come into play here is that Michael Bisping is really good at catching leg kicks and returning fire with straight punches. Anderson Silva, of course, is known for his leg kicks, but he could be a little timid in this because of his broken leg, of course, still. But I think that Anderson Silva is going to finish Michael Bisping in the second round. It's going to be a not that fun first round because Michael's going to be circling, Anderson's going to be looking to counter strike, and not much is going to happen. But in the second round, Michael Bisping is going to come out. He's going to be frustrated. He's going to come charging at Anderson Silva a little bit. He likes to do that. He throws some strikes, then a low kick or a high kick, 1-2 kick basically. He's going to be trying to do something like that. Anderson's going to catch him with an extremely accurate punch and put him down. That's how I see it going. But I don't have too much confidence in that, especially at -300 on Anderson Silva. I would not make a play on it. But if you think that Anderson Silva's chin is completely gone, which it completely might be, and that would be sad for me, but I won't be shocked if Michael Bisping can put Anderson's lights out. Michael Bisping put some big shots on Talis, even though he got rocked in their fight. If Michael gets rocked and leans against the cage like he did against Talis, Anderson Silva's not going to clinch with him. Anderson's going to wait for him to come back away from the fence, not going to give him time to recover like Talis did, and then put some more accurate strikes on his dome piece. So for me, on my UFC Pick'em, on my Tapology, I've got Anderson the Spider Silva KO or TKO in round number 2. I will not be putting him on my DraftKings team though, because I don't have a terrible amount of confidence in it. I don't fault you for putting a small play on Michael Bisping at like that +265 mark, but that's all for this preview prediction video. If you like the content, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will soon be putting out my Talis versus Gegard, the Dreamcatcher Mousasi analysis preview prediction video, and also Wednesday evening, I will be with Nick Baldwin from MMA Junior, and we'll be previewing the entire UFC Fight Night 84 card. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Namaste.